AITA for refusing to help my daughter after she sided with my cheating wife? Alright, I got a vent somewhere. I'm a 53-year-old guy, let's call me Tom. Or I was 50 when my life went sideways. I was married to Susan for 25 years. We have a daughter, Olivia, who was 24 when this whole mess went down. We weren't loaded, but we were comfortable. I had a steady gig in logistics management. Susan worked part-time as a school administrator. We owned our home, a modest 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. Olivia was always the apple of our eye, at least mine. I thought we were close. She'd call me for advice, we'd goof around. She was a good kid, graduated college, had an entry-level job. About a year before everything imploded, she started talking about buying her own place, a small condo or starter home. The market was insane, and she was struggling to save for a down payment. Looking back, the red flags with Susan probably started a couple of years before she left. She got restless, started making comments about our friends who had bigger houses or went on cruises to the Caribbean. She made a new group of friends at a yoga studio she joined, women who seemed to have way more disposable income than we did. She started going out more with them. Dinners, weekend getaways I wasn't invited to. When I asked, she'd say I wouldn't enjoy it, it was girl stuff. Her criticisms of me became more frequent. Not huge blow-ups, but little jabs. My clothes weren't trendy enough. I wasn't ambitious enough at work. I was too content with our quiet life. Our intimacy dwindled to practically nothing. She often seemed distant, preoccupied, glued to her phone, always angling the screen away from me. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly switch screens or put it down. I confronted her a few times, asked if there was someone else. She denied it, got mad, accused me of being paranoid and jealous, said she was just trying to find herself and wished I'd be supportive of her personal growth. Around that time, Olivia started acting differently too. She and Susan became super tight, always whispering and exchanging looks I couldn't figure out. Olivia stopped confiding in me as much. If I asked if anything was up with her mom or between us, she'd just say her mom was stressed about work or that I was imagining things. She became Susan's biggest defender. The down payment conversation for Olivia's house continued. She was bummed about not being able to afford a place. Susan kept bringing it up too, hinting that we should be helping more. I had a separate savings account, money I'd busted my hump for over the years. It was a mix of inheritance from my folks and my own bonuses. It was my emergency fund, my safety net, maybe for retirement, maybe if one of us got sick. It was a substantial chunk of change, practically all my liquid assets outside of regular contributions to my 401k. After months of listening to Olivia's stress and Susan subtly pressure me, I made a decision. I told Olivia I'd give her the money for the down payment. It was a big chunk of change, almost $120,000, enough to cover a solid 20% on a small house she'd found. She cried, hugged me, told me I was the best dad ever. Susan seemed pleased too, said it was the right thing to do. Olivia closed on her house about 3 months before Susan dropped the bombshell. She moved in, and I helped her paint and put together furniture from IKEA. It felt good, like I'd done something meaningful for her future. It was a Tuesday night. I got home from work. Susan was sitting at the kitchen table, not in her usual spot on the couch watching TV. She had a packed suitcase by the door. She told me, very calmly, that she was leaving, that she hadn't been happy for years, that she wanted more out of life. I asked why, what had happened. She said it wasn't one thing, it was everything, that we'd grown apart. Then she told me there was someone else, a guy named Arthur. She said he was successful, kind, and could give her the life she deserved. I asked how long it had been going on. 6 months, she said. Maybe more. I don't know if even then she was being straight with me. She told me Arthur was wealthy, that she was moving in with him to his McMansion in a very upscale part of town. I was in shock. 25 years, just like that. Then I asked about Olivia. How were we going to tell her? Susan looked away. She said, Olivia knows. She's known for a while. That hit me harder than the infidelity. Olivia knew. My daughter knew her mother was cheating on me. Knew Susan was planning to leave me. I couldn't process it. Susan explained that Olivia had stumbled across some texts on her phone a few months earlier. Said Olivia was upset at first, but then understood and just wanted her mom to be happy. A few months. I asked. I did the math in my head. That meant Olivia knew about the affair. Knew her mother was going to ditch me. when she accepted my $120,000, when she cried and hugged me, telling me I was the best dad ever she knew. She took my life savings knowing her mother was about to blow up my life and our marriage. I felt this coldness inside. I asked Susan to confirm it. Olivia knew when I gave her the money for the house. Susan nodded, a little impatiently, like it was an annoying detail. Said Olivia hadn't wanted to upset me before I handed over the cash, that the timing was just unfortunate. I felt hollow. I told Susan to leave. She took her suitcase and walked out. Apparently, Arthur was waiting for her in his Lexus down the street. She didn't even look back. I called Olivia immediately. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I called again and again. Nothing. I drove over to her new house. Her car was there. I rang the doorbell, banged on the door. No answer. I could hear movement inside. I was sure of it. She was there, hiding from me. The next few days are a blur. I barely slept or ate. The house felt enormous and silent. Friends called. My brother called. I told them Susan had left. I didn't tell them about Olivia's involvement or the money at first. The betrayal by my own daughter felt like a deeper wound than Susan's. Susan, on some level, I could almost understand. People fall out of love. Infidelity happens. But Olivia was my daughter. Susan filed for divorce quickly. She didn't want anything from the marital home, just her personal belongings. Arthur was supporting her. At least that made the legal stuff straightforward. The house was primarily in my name anyway, having bought it before we got hitched, though years of shared finances would have made things messy if she'd pushed, but she just wanted a clean break. Eventually, I got a text from Olivia, a short, awkward message, saying she was sorry I was hurting, that everything was very difficult, and that she hoped we could talk when things calmed down. No mention of the money, no real apology for her deception. I talked to a lawyer, a buddy of a friend. I asked if there was any way to get the money back from Olivia given the circumstances. He was blunt. It was a gift. There was no loan agreement or contract, and proving she'd had fraudulent intent related to the gift would be incredibly difficult, expensive, and probably a dead end. He said, "You could try, but it'll drag on for years and likely result in nothing but more heartache and legal fees." My life savings were gone, and my daughter had helped make that happen, knowing my marriage was a sham about to explode. After that text, I stopped trying to contact Olivia. What more could I say? I went to therapy for a few months. It helped some, mostly just to talk to someone neutral. My brother was a huge support. He called constantly, even though he lived across the country. About 3 years passed. The divorce was finalized within 8 months of Susan leaving. I sold the family house. Too many memories, too much space for one person. I bought a smaller townhouse closer to work. I heard rumors about Susan and Arthur. They were traveling, throwing lavish parties. Susan had the life she'd apparently always wanted. I never heard anything directly from Olivia. I assumed she was living her life in the house I paid for, probably enjoying her mother's new wealthy connections. I made a conscious decision to try to build a new life for myself. I focused on my career. I got a promotion. I wasn't happy, not like before, but I was functioning, stable again, in a more solitary way. I made a point of being self-sufficient. I rebuilt some of my savings, not as much as before, but enough not to feel completely vulnerable. Then, about 2 weeks ago, the past came knocking. Literally. I was home on a Saturday morning when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and my heart almost stopped. It was Susan and Olivia, standing side by side, at my door. They both looked different. I almost didn't open the door. Part of me wanted to just walk away, pretend I wasn't home. But another part, a colder, angrier part, was curious. Why now, after 3 years of silence? So I opened it. Susan started talking immediately, a nervous stream of words. Apparently, Arthur had run into serious financial trouble. His businesses went belly up. He had massive debts. The McMansion was gone. The fancy cars were repossessed. He'd become bitter and difficult. According to Susan, he'd dumped her abruptly. Basically kicked her out with nothing but the clothes on her back. Then Olivia chimed in. Said Susan had nowhere to go and had been staying with her for the past month, in her small 2-bedroom house. But Olivia was struggling too. She'd lost her job a few months ago and was only doing sporadic freelance work. The mortgage on her house was becoming a burden. She was afraid of losing it. And then came the reason for their visit. They needed my help. Susan needed a place to stay, just for a little while, until she could get back on her feet, and they both needed money. Olivia asked if I could help with her mortgage payments, just for a few months. Susan even suggested that, since my townhouse had a spare bedroom, she could stay with me. Said we had a lot of history, and surely I wouldn't leave her on the street. Olivia backed her up, saying it was the right thing to do. I listened to all of this without saying a word. I just stood there in the doorway looking at them. The audacity was breathtaking. After what they'd done, they were there asking me for help. My money, my home. I didn't give them an answer then. I told them I needed to think about it. They seemed disappointed, but said they'd call me in a couple of days. They're waiting for me to bail them out. So, Reddit, what do you think? This isn't an Am I the A-hole, because I haven't done anything yet, but I'm about to be. I'm pretty sure what I'm going to do, but I guess I'm just writing all this out to sort out my thoughts before I drop the hammer. This whole thing has brought up so much. Update 1. First, thanks to everyone who read my novel of a post and commented. I wasn't expecting so many responses. A lot of you shared some hard truths, and honestly, it was what I needed to hear, even though I was already leaning in that direction. It just made up my mind. No DMs, please. I'm not looking for private chats. I just wanted to vent on Reddit. Many asked for clarification, so I'll try to address the main ones. 1. The money for Olivia's house. To be clear, the $120,000 was a gift. There was no loan agreement or any paperwork saying it was conditional. It was my entire life savings, outside of my 401k. I'd earned it over decades. A significant portion came from an inheritance from my folks, who worked hard their whole lives. Giving it to Olivia meant I essentially wiped out my financial safety net at 50. Yes, it was a ridiculously trusting decision in hindsight. 2. Olivia's knowledge of the affair. Susan confirmed Olivia knew about the affair for roughly 8 months before she left me. Olivia found texts between Susan and Arthur. Susan said Olivia was upset at first, but then accepted it because Susan convinced her she was unhappy with me and that Arthur would make her happy. So, for 4 months, Olivia knew her mother was having an affair and planned to leave me. And, for at least one of those months, she accepted my life savings knowing all of that. She sat with me in the lawyer's office to close on the house, smiling and thanking me, knowing all of this. That's the part that stings the most. 3. Why didn't I take legal action to recoup the money? As I mentioned, my lawyer advised against it. He said proving fraudulent misrepresentation or undue influence with the standard required to claw back a gift would be an uphill, expensive battle, and likely unwinnable. He said it would look like a scorned husband/father's grievance, and courts are reluctant to reverse gifts unless there's solid proof of explicit deception directly related to the giving of the gift for that specific purpose. My evidence was largely circumstantial. The timing, Susan's admission of when Olivia knew. It would have been my word against Olivia and Susan's, and they'd probably claim Olivia knew but didn't tell me to spare my feelings, not to defraud me. He gave me figures on legal fees that would have eaten up a good chunk of what I was trying to recover, with no guarantee of success. I decided not to throw good money after bad. For what kind of help did they ask for? Susan explicitly asked to move into my spare bedroom. Said it would be temporary, just until she got on her feet. She also asked for money for living expenses. Olivia asked for help with her mortgage payments for at least 6 months, and also money for utilities and groceries. They presented as a united front, as if it was the most natural thing in the world for me to step in. 5. My current financial situation. I'm okay, not rich. After selling the family house, I cleared the old mortgage and had enough for a down payment on my townhouse and a little put away. I've been saving aggressively for the past 3 years. I have an emergency fund again and am contributing more to my retirement. I am not in a position to comfortably support 2 unemployed adults, and wouldn't be even if I were a millionaire. Reading the comments here and having a few more days to let their requests sink in really solidified what I was already feeling. The words audacity, entitlement, and consequences came up a lot and resonated. For 3 years, they lived their lives seemingly without a thought to me, the man they both betrayed and, in Olivia's case, effectively stole from. My daughter, whom I raised, whom I provided for, whom I gave my last significant financial asset to, chose to align with her mother's deception for her own gain, staying silent to secure the house money and then for her mother's supposed happiness. There was zero remorse in their approach to me, no apology for the past. It was all about their current needs, their current problems. It was as if the last 3 years and the reasons behind them were irrelevant. They saw me as a resource, a safety net they believed they could reactivate whenever it suited them. My decision became crystal clear. There would be no help, no money, no shelter, nothing. But simply saying no didn't feel sufficient. They needed to fully understand the extent of their actions, and why no was the only possible answer. So, when Susan and Olivia called me Wednesday evening, as they said they would, it was Olivia who called, with Susan presumably beside her. Olivia asked if I'd had time to consider their situation. I told her I had, that I'd given it a lot of thought. I said I would meet with them, but not at my house. Yesterday afternoon, I arrived at the Starbucks a few minutes early. I picked a table in a quiet corner. I didn't order anything. They arrived together, looking expectant. Susan even attempted a small, hopeful smile. Olivia looked nervous. They sat down. Before they could launch into their pleas again, I started talking. I kept my voice calm and steady. I told them I'd listened to their request a few days earlier and had thought about it carefully. Then I laid it all out. I reminded Susan that she had chosen to end our 25-year marriage for another man, believing he would offer her a better life. I stated that that was her choice, and choices have consequences. Her consequence was that, when that new life imploded, she was alone. Our marriage, our partnership, our mutual obligations of support, ended when she walked out that door with her suitcase to join Arthur. I told her that her current predicament was the direct result of her own decisions and Arthur's financial failings, not mine. Then I turned to Olivia. I told her that her betrayal was, in many ways, even more painful. I recounted how I had given her $120,000, my entire life savings, for her house. I told her, factually, that she accepted that money knowing full well that her mother was having an affair and planned to leave me. I told her that she had stayed silent, allowed me to give her that money, and participated in the charade of a happy family, helping fulfill her dream. All while knowing the devastation that was about to be unleashed on me. I described how she hid in her new house when I came looking for answers. I reminded her of her single, insufficient text message. I told Olivia that her actions weren't just passive omission, but active deception, that accepting the money under those circumstances demonstrated a profound lack of character and loyalty. I told her the house she was so worried about losing was, in essence, financed by that deception. I explained to both of them that, for 3 years, they showed zero concern for my well-being, my financial situation after being left with no savings, or my emotional state. They didn't reach out with apologies or attempts at genuine reconciliation. Their reappearance was solely due to their own needs, their desperation. Then I gave them the bottom line. I told them I would not be giving them any money, not for Susan's living expenses, not for Olivia's mortgage. I told Susan she would not be staying in my house. I stated that my home was my sanctuary, rebuilt after they'd both contributed to destroying the previous one. I said, the Bank of Tom is closed. It was robbed by its most trusted tellers, and it's not reopening for you. You are adults. Susan, you made your bed with Arthur. It's unfortunate it collapsed, but it's not my responsibility to build you a new one. Olivia, you got your inheritance early, under false pretenses. That $120,000 was it. You have to manage your finances and your property on your own. If you can't afford the house, then you'll have to make adult decisions, like selling it. I also told them this would be our last conversation on the matter, that I wouldn't discuss it further, that I wouldn't take any calls about it. I advised them to seek assistance from social services, other family members if they had any, or get jobs, whatever it took, but not to come to me again. Susan started to cry, quietly at first, then more openly. Said I was being cruel, heartless, that she was desperate. Mentioned all the years she'd put into the marriage. I reminded her that she was the one who unilaterally decided those years were worth less than wealthier prospects. Olivia just stared at me, her face pale. She didn't say much, just muttered something about me not understanding. I told her I understood perfectly. I understood that she'd made the choice to prioritize money and her mother's affair over her father. Then Susan started to get angry. Her voice rose. Accused me of wanting to see her suffer, of being vindictive. A few people at nearby tables looked over. I kept my voice low. I told her I felt nothing about her suffering other than distant observation that it was self-inflicted. I wasn't seeking revenge, just making my position and boundaries clear. Recoupment would be getting my money back, which wasn't happening. This was simply consequences. They sat there for a few more minutes. Susan pleaded some more. Olivia looked defeated. I didn't respond further. I just said, I think I've made my position clear. There's nothing more to discuss. Then I got up, turned, and walked out. I didn't look back. As I drove home, I didn't feel elated or joyful. I felt a grim sense of closure, like a painful chapter had finally ended. It was a tough thing to do, to look your ex-wife and your only daughter in the eye and deliver that kind of message. But it was necessary. They had mistaken my previous kindness and generosity for weakness. They needed to understand that the man they knew, the one they took for granted and betrayed, was no longer available to them. I don't know what they'll do. And, frankly, it's no longer my concern. They created this situation. Let them figure their way out of it. Update 2. It's been about 9 months since my last update, the one where I described the meeting with Susan and Olivia and delivered my final decision. Figured enough time has passed, or not enough, depending on how you look at it, to write a final chapter to this saga, for those who have followed the story. After that Starbucks meeting, I held firm. Blocked their numbers. Didn't respond to a couple of emails Olivia sent the following week. They were basically the same pleas, with a bit more self-pity thrown in. For the first month or two, I half expected them to show up at my door again or try to corner me at work. Didn't happen. Guess my message got through. I've heard things indirectly. Through a mutual acquaintance I still see occasionally, someone who knew Susan and me for years, and Olivia as well. Apparently, he, too, was hit up for assistance, unsuccessfully. From what I've been told, Susan's situation got pretty rough. Apparently, she tried crashing with a couple of her wealthier friends, the ones she'd palled around with during her time with Arthur. But those arrangements were short-lived. Seems friendships built on being close to money don't last when that money disappears. Last I heard, she was renting a room in a shared house, in a much less desirable part of town, and working a retail job, a far cry from the life she had with Arthur, and even a step down from the life she had with me. The acquaintance mentioned that Susan seemed bitter and complained constantly about her bad luck, rarely taking responsibility for the choices that led her there. No mention of her trying to find more stable employment, upgrade her skills. As for Olivia, things also went as you might expect. She couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments on the house I financed. The acquaintance told me Olivia tried getting roommates, but that was problematic. Apparently, she was having trouble finding steady work that paid enough. The house, being a newer build, also came with property taxes and HOA fees that she hadn't fully considered when she was flush with a 100% finance down payment. About 4 months ago, so roughly 5 months after our Starbucks meeting, I saw Olivia's house listed for sale. It sold pretty quickly, according to the acquaintance, who seems to have the inside scoop on all this. Small world, I guess. Or perhaps Olivia is still trying to tap into old networks. After paying off the mortgage and closing costs, Olivia didn't make a killing. Housing prices had flattened out somewhat in her area, and she'd taken out a sizable mortgage on top of my gift. Apparently, she didn't walk away with a ton of cash, but enough to get herself situated somewhere, presumably. I don't know where she ended up living. Maybe with a friend or renting a small apartment. As far as I know, she's still estranged from everyone on my side of the family. Neither of them has tried to contact me directly again. My life has continued on its new path. Work is good. I'm financially stable. My health is good. So that's it. They made their choices, they got their answer, and life moved on. I did what I felt was right and necessary for my own sanity and self-respect. I don't specifically wish them ill, but I also don't spend any time worrying about their well-being. They are adults, responsible for their own lives, just as I am responsible for mine. Thanks again to the Redditors who read and commented on my original posts. Venting and getting outside perspectives was helpful at the time. I don't foresee any further updates on this particular matter. It's over. Time to focus on what's ahead. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.